All right, so how to upgrade smart cities with self-control and collective intelligence. So a couple of years back, I've been in Egypt and was very much puzzled by observing this self-organized traffic flow, where basically, despite all that diversity of traffic participants, nobody had to stop. There was no traffic light, there was no policeman. People were just going. And it's, of course, the particular design of that intersection that made it possible. We have a unidirectional flow in the front and in the back. And in between, there is a buffer where cars and everyone else can adjust the speed in such a way that there would be a gap in the traffic flow when you need it. Now, can we basically transfer that principle into the digital age and use self-organization to improve traffic flow, and in particular come up with an adaptive traffic light control that's suitable for complex street networks, for traffic disruptions and particular events. And what we tried was to implement a pressure principle that we've learned can produce oscillatory flows at bottlenecks in pedestrian flows. And it turns out that this is possible and creates actually self-organized green waves. What we've done is we have come up with a particular scheme of making short-term forecasts based on the inflow of vehicles into a road section. And so we could basically calculate how much green time we needed. And the traffic lights were then responding to the traffic flow rather than the other way around. This has been described a couple of years back, and what we observed was that if we compare a traffic control center with an approach where every single intersection tries to come up with the best traffic light control, minimizing travel times for the approaching vehicles, and a third approach on the right where we would do the same thing, but sometimes clear long queues before we go back to travel time minimization in order to avoid spillover effects. We would expect the left approach, I mean, traffic center control to be the best, the middle one to be the second best, and the right one to be the worst. And it turns out this is not the case, surprisingly. Now, the traffic center would produce what you can see represented by the red curve, top-down regulation. As the capacity utilization of the intersection goes up, the queue length also increases more or less linearly as expected. However, if we let every intersection minimize travel times locally, the selfish optimization a la Homo economicus, that works much better for small capacity utilization, while then around 0.6, you see an explosion of the queue lengths. And that's, of course, the reason why we have traffic control centers, right? So basically, we could say on the left, for low capacity utilization, Adam Smith's invisible hand, that means self-organization works, but for high capacity utilization, it fails. Now, surprisingly enough, for the third approach, which is other regarding with regard to the neighboring intersections, this works best all the way. So we can make the invisible hand work. So all we have done here is basically use short-term prediction, flexible response to local needs, and coordination between neighboring intersections. And now the question is, how well does that actually work? And in Europe, we have pretty messy street networks, such as the one over here in Dresden, Germany. And moreover, these areas are being cut through by public transport lines, tram lines, bus lines. And what they're trying to do is to come up with a green wave for the vehicles, but they would also like to prioritize public transportation. And they couldn't do that because it would basically interrupt the green waves and thereby cause a traffic jam that would quickly spread all over the city. And so they asked us, could we come up with something better? And so what you see on top is the green wave that is being produced by the state-of-the-art control that they bought for a couple of millions, I believe. And below is what our own self-organized control approach produces. It looks more flexible, as you can see. It doesn't impose green waves, but it basically lets green waves emerge as a result of what happens in the traffic flow. Now the question, what works better? And surprisingly, according to the simulations, public transport will have a huge benefit, but not at the cost of motorized traffic. They also have an improvement. And pedestrians and cyclists too. And by the way, the environment will benefit too. Now, so far we've seen computer simulation results, right? And now the question is, how well does it really work in the wild? I mean, out there on real streets. And this has recently been tested, not only in Dresden, but also here in Switzerland. And the conclusion was there would be more green light for everyone. Something quite surprising, something that sounds impossible, but somehow, as approved by a different professorship we are not related with, this has been confirmed. We've gone a step further in the meantime, because we're now living in an age of AI, and we've been looking into how well machine learning will do. And press light in purple is a machine learning approach. You can see it takes a pretty long time for this approach to learn to regulate traffic efficiently. And then it still basically performs not better than the analytical approach that I showed you before, the self-control approach. That's quite surprising. However, there's also good news. So if we feed knowledge from the analytical approach into the machine learning approach, then in fact things get better. And moreover, the learning is sped up, so it doesn't take so much time for the algorithm to learn how to control the traffic lights well. So the conclusion is self-organization approaches are surprisingly well performing, but combining both machine learning and self-organization produces a superior performance, but it requires analytical input. So analytical isn't dead in a sense. Now, these are a few surprising insights. And of course, the question is, can we kind of extend the application domain of this kind of approach in order to solve, for example, sustainability issues of the world or of cities? And of course, you know, the UN Agenda 2030, I'm not sure you like it or not. The question is, if one wanted to implement it, how to do it? And some people say, okay, we just need all the data in the world and a supercomputer and a powerful AI, and it will do it for us. We have a different point of view here. Of course, it turns out that a flexible response to local needs appear to be superior. So we think actually that cities and regions are the units that we should be focusing on. And in those units, we should aim for a resilient design, which requires diversity and decentralization, for example. So we are very skeptical about an automation of everything that happens in the city. Not only that some people get scared by a surveillance-based approach, also it hasn't shown to be superior in terms of producing a higher quality of life. And in fact, the automation approach has been disappointing to many institutions and also companies. So it didn't work as well. And it's largely because it basically neglected people. People were seen as a problem, as an obstacle, as something that one wanted to take out of the equation. But instead, we believe we should actually design cities for people and use the power of the citizenship. And so basically, we're now working on the question how to upgrade smart cities with collective intelligence, how to upgrade democracy digitally. And here we can learn a lot from the wisdom of crowds. The idea is basically to bring the best ideas of many minds together. And the idea is old and is basically inspired by swarm intelligence. And from the research in this area, we know that in order to produce that swarm intelligence or collective intelligence, we need to do things in 3 steps or phases. Phase 1 requires independent exploration of the situation and also of possible solution approaches. Phase 2 is focused on information exchange, and phase 3 then will integrate different solution approaches in an innovative way based on deliberation. So that is a step that cannot be automated. So basically, diversity wins and not the best by bringing different perspectives and solutions together. And that can be supported with digital platforms, in particular certain kind of incentive systems that would actually outperform majority decision making and markets, interestingly enough. Now, the question is how to scale up collective intelligence to the global scale. And what we propose is basically to engage in something that we call city Olympics or a city cup, where all the cities that are interested in participating would aim at finding better solutions to climate, energy, sustainability, and resilience challenges. And all the stakeholders in a city and region would participate in this. And then there would be a best of list of solutions, and those solutions would be open source. So they can be developed further, they can be combined with each other, can be the basis of businesses around the world. And so the approach would be to think global, but to act local and diverse, to experiment, to learn from each other and to help each other. And in fact, we've made a small test run, and we hope that in the future this would be scaled up. So the overall idea is to turn the city into a big maker space where new solutions would be tried out and implemented, and competition would make us all be better. And so we would basically bring the value of different cultures together to benefit all from this, based on a diverse and resilient approach. An approach that's based on co-learning, co-creation, coordination, cooperation, and co-evolution. And I think with this, we're actually going to see a paradigm shift and enter a new age where we learn to unleash the power of cooperation globally. That's about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's very interesting. So but I wonder like how you actually enable it, like a co-creation or co-learning part. Do you have a platform for people to put their inputs, or how they can realize their idea and the thoughts?
Yes, we have been working on some demonstration platform for some of the ideas we've been working on within the limited means that we have. We have, for example, worked on health platform InfluenzaNet, where this was about participatory health. We've been working on a participatory resilience solution for emergency communication using ad hoc networks in a better way. We've been working on vote app that is not just based on majority voting, but also allows different kinds of voting to be utilized that would take on board more different perspectives and ideas and would benefit more people altogether than if you just have the majority speak. We have been working on a platform for more sustainable consumption, which is based on value-sensitive design, health, sustainability, informational self-determination. So there's also another platform I haven't talked about today, which we call Finance 4.0, which is a system that brings together Internet of Things measurements with blockchain technology to create multiple or multidimensional real-time feedback, incentives, and coordination, and thereby empowers people to come up with a better control of complex systems or even to build self-organizing systems. So basically what we are trying to do is to inject new forces into the economy, into markets that would drive the system little by little towards a circular economy. So the circular economy would basically result from co-evolutionary attempts. Everyone would make a little improvement, and those forces would help coordinate those activities. So it comes together eventually. So it's not regulation-based approach, but an approach that is very much geared at empowerment of people and companies and more awareness. And thereby we want to set free the creativity and innovation of a broader basis of society. So not just big companies, but also SMEs, spin-offs, citizen scientists, makers, basically give everyone an opportunity to benefit from new knowledge and put it into reality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally respect on that approach, and we were thinking about something similar, but also with some experience from the crowdsourcing in general. One thing we learned is one particular challenge could be, say, the majority can be wrong sometimes, right? So it's in the mechanical turf, we're asking people something, the majority answer may not always correct. So for the smart city, we feel this may be even more problem is the majority might be less informed or with less information. So they may not make the best decision or make the best choices. Was that some of the consideration here, or what's your thoughts on this?
I mean, the issue is often manipulation, right? That we have now very powerful means of manipulation through social media.
Yeah.
And it's hard to judge what is fact and what is fake. And that's why we're trying to build participatory systems that allow people to judge themselves. The NervousNet platform that I didn't mention before was an participatory Internet of Things platform for citizens, run by the citizens, that would allow you to see certain things or make measurements and thereby get an informed decision. In any way, you could certainly detect if there is a disagreement on a fact or not, and that would highlight those issues that require a particular attention. So at least you would know what are the controversial facts, which would have to be checked with a particular procedure. So yeah, certain kind of things can be automated, but other kind of things would, these controversies would indicate where you need to put manpower in order to check facts.
So there still need to be moderated and curated in a way. Yeah.
I guess so, and there would be a qualification process where people who have shown in the past that they get things right, would be promoted to be judges of certain controversies and moderate the community. There would need to be a procedure of voting for them and ensuring that they're operating within the framework of law. But I do believe that it's possible to create platforms that would strengthen democracy digitally and could make use of collective intelligence. But we also all know, and I admit this, that if we apply the wrong interaction rules in a social system, such as a social media platform, it can mislead and deceive people and can lead also to a madness of crowds. So if, for example, in the 3-step procedure that I mentioned before, we don't have independent information search in the beginning in phase 1, but instead everyone is being manipulated, then most likely collective intelligence will not come about, but things will go wrong and instead we'll have a poor outcome. So it's really important how we design those platforms, taking on board the knowledge that we have gained in the past decades in the social sciences. And I think, a lot of social media platforms have been pretty ignorant about a large body of literature in the social sciences and have not taken proper social mechanisms on board to have a constructive, truthful, trustful exchange of ideas. But there are many different platforms. So one platform that I find interesting is the Polis platform that is being used, for example, in Taiwan. And here, an artificial intelligence system is matching people with different points of view and tasking them or asking them to come up with compromises that are acceptable for both sides. And that kind of matching procedure is being done many times until a convergence takes place and solutions are being found through this, deliberative, creative, innovative process that basically is satisfactory for most people. And once that convergence has come about, this is being put into law. So, people are being activated as a source of knowledge and a source of innovation to come up with better solutions. And in contrast to Facebook or Twitter, this is not geared towards who produces more noise will win, but it's, in fact, the noise is turned off. There is no feedback, no flame wars and so on in the Polis system, but there's this kind of meeting room atmosphere where two people are being matched and they're tasked to work on the problem. So I think we can learn how to come up with better platforms, and certainly that is a process that's ongoing, and we need to be careful how we're doing this.
Okay, sounds very interesting. So if there's no more questions, and we're already 6 minutes over our time, so I want to thank you again for your time and to give us this interesting talk. And if we can have the recording, and we will post them through our channels, and hopefully more people will know your works.
Thank you very much for the invitation and for the questions and discussions. So have a great day. Bye-bye.
So bye.